Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Product and Cake. Here in the virtual recording studio is obviously my co-host, Gonche. Hi, Gonche, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing great. It is sunny but not too warm, so it's perfect weather for me. I'm really doing good today.
Nice. And it is also perfect weather for podcasting and for inviting fantastic guests. And here with us today is Friederike Gaigl. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Hello.
So, Friederike, you bring super interesting experiences because you have a very strong design background. But now you switched sides from the big corporate world into founder mode. And at Nyord, you are responsible for product and tech. So that fits obviously perfectly in our podcast. And we are so keen to learn more and also to learn from your perspective how you look in the world of AI tools into this product and tech thing, because I know already that you did quite interesting things. But before we dive into that, let us start with a good old check-in question. And I would like to know from you, what do you currently miss?
Oh, what do I currently miss? Free time, I think, is the first thing that comes to my mind, right? This time when you think I don't have anything to do and I don't have to look on my watch.
Yes. Yeah, valid one. I that feeling sounds familiar. What about you, Gonche? What do you currently miss?
That's a really hard question. I don't know how to answer this. I think these days, in the last couple of weeks, I started crafting a little bit more. So literally right now, earlier today, I was casting my own resin Dungeons and Dragon dice set. So for that, you need a lot of stuff. And for each crafting hobby that you have, you need a lot of stuff. So right now, what I really miss is extra room or extra space for crafting, because right now I have just a very small drawer, a small closet for all of my crafting supplies, and it's a mess there. And I need so much more crafting supplies. I don't need, but I want to have a sewing machine. I want to have a lot of crafting things, but I don't have the space, so I miss the space.
So from my side, what I am really missing, I realized that I miss the patience. As you get bombarded with AI news nowadays, with everything happens more or less on the same time. And my project seems to be still developed slow. I miss a little bit the patience to say, okay, let's see where this goes, and let's avoid to accelerate all the time. I think we all need some time to think and to realize and understand. But maybe that is a wish I will miss for a little bit of longer time.
Yeah, I fully understand it. I also am not patient enough, but right now I'm really not patient enough to understand more about Friederike. I have the first question for you. For those who don't know you, can you please explain what you're currently doing as head of product and tech at Nyord?
Yeah, as you already said, I have a design background actually, but I kind of got into this kind of founder mode. And so I'm doing everything related to the product. So the idea that the product is based on is something that I have been thinking about for a long time. So I also I'm carving out the product vision and strategy. I'm doing UX, UI design, of course. I'm also building the product. Yeah, so I'm doing user research. I'm talking to customers. I'm doing a lot. Of course, I don't do everything of that, at 100%, like maybe someone would do in this specific role in a larger product team or company. But I think this is just this stage that we are in with our product. We're relatively early on. And so at that point in time, you just do everything. And yeah.
Your background is clearly visible if you check out Nyord.io. I really like the design. It looks pretty cool. Also, the product itself looks fantastic. Can you quantify a little bit for us with how many people are you working at that product at the moment?
So actually, it's just 2 of us right now. So we're two founders. My co-founder, he's doing everything around the company, legal stuff, talking to customers, contracts, marketing. So, and I am doing everything around the product. So it's actually just me. So we had times when we were more people. So we had like someone specifically for marketing for a while. There was a time when we were actually 2 more designers right in the beginning, but then they just kind of wanted to do other things. Yeah. So right now it's just me. So, and what you said about the website, I'm happy you like it, but I'm sometimes I look at it and I think, oh my God, like, if my former colleagues could see this or my former bosses, they would say, Friederike, you could do this better, right? And so what's really bad is that we still don't have a real logo. So this is really sad because I would actually be able to do this. So based on my previous job experiences, but I feel it's like not the most important thing to do right now. So we just kind of have this sort of typo logo that's not a real logo. And at some point I will get to this and I make a real one. So
nice. How did you end up here?
of course, it's a long story, but I try to keep it short. So I had been thinking about this topic of group intelligence, collective intelligence. How can groups be creative together and be effective together? I had been thinking about this a longer time, so for a couple of years, because in my former job, I also did a lot of facilitation, co-innovation with customers. And so I felt it was very powerful what you can do as a group, but at the same time, it's also really limited because you only can put so many people in one room at the same time to do something together, right? And so as a product designer, of course, you always think you have to solve everything with a product, right? And so I was basically thinking about, okay, how could you do this maybe digitally or like in a digital space? And then there was just this kind of point in my life where I was ready for something new and kind of everything fell together. So there were a couple of people around me who were more like entrepreneurial because I wasn't at all. So I would not have started a company on my own, like never. But they said to me, hey, this is a cool idea. Let's just maybe try it. And I was open to try something new. And then there was this one friend of mine who was really, really good at doing pitch decks. And so he said, okay, let's do a pitch deck and apply for an accelerator. And we did that and we got in to our surprise. And so, sometimes it's just like you do this one step and suddenly you do the next and then you do the next. And then it's kind of difficult to stop because then we were in this accelerator and this was really great. We were there with some other teams who also were working on an idea and we were like this coaching and mentoring and a co-working space and some money. And so we just kept going. And yeah, now I'm here.
Before that, you were working as a senior UX designer for SAP. And that sounds very much like a super secure position that could last forever, more or less, right? Where you could spend the rest of your career maybe in. So when you worked on the pitch deck and you applied for this accelerator, was that still at your SAP time or did you took first a decision to jump out of your full-time role and then go into this working mode on the startup?
No, I stopped working at SAP and I did some sort of sabbatical. So I was in the stage where I thought, okay, I have to kind of think about what I want to do next. And I'll just take some time, couple of months to just kind of do nothing and then let ideas flow and see what happens. And then I was like, okay, while I was doing that, I could also kind of work on this idea, that now is Nyord. But I didn't have the plan to start a company. It was more like a personal research project. And then, everything else happened. So yeah, it was not very planned.
And in your current role, if you mentioned already that you're taking everything about the product, the designing everything, and you probably have a team that works on the tech aspect. Is that the case? Or are you also responsible for anything code related?
No, I don't have a team. I'm doing everything myself.
Ooh.
Maybe do you want me to explain this a little? Because I know
Yeah,
that
that would be great.
Okay, it sounds a bit weird maybe. So, okay, maybe I'll tell you how this even came into place. So at the beginning, we did have a co-founder who had a technical background, and he was supposed to build the product, and I was supposed just to kind of create the design, the interface, and the concept. But then he dropped out. He just, had other plans. And it was while we were in this accelerator program. And then we had this opportunity to do like a sort of a usability testing. So basically the program had organized it and they had invited like the whole community. And so as a startup, you could basically present your product and have people test it, which is great because then you don't have to organize it yourself. And then another co-founder at that time who was also a designer, so basically exactly same role than me, and we said, okay, we have to, how can we build something to test there? And then we said, okay, let's just try to build it ourselves in Bubble. Do you know Bubble? It's like a no-code visual editor tool. And so we had 2 weeks and we built the whole thing in Bubble. So with the whole thing, I mean, like something that we could test, like that basically presented like the core idea. And we were really surprised how easy that was because Bubble there are many other tools out there that are similar. We just accidentally ended up with this one. So it's basically a visual code editor. So it's a bit like Figma or Sketch. So you build the front end with like your boxes and typography and colors and everything. And then you have a database attached to it and you have workflows. And basically you can build out everything really visually. So also the workflows work quite visually. You have these like little gray boxes and then you put them together. And then also you work with a lot of natural language. So basically you say, please create this data, then change the data and so on. And like for a designer, this is really great because this is how we work anyway. So we start usually with a sort of an interface and then we think in task flows or user flows, which is also in the beginning often it's like little gray boxes with arrows. And then we basically try to map all the flows that we want to build, right? And so for me and my colleague, it felt really natural to use these kind of tools. And in the beginning, we were just thinking that we would do this for this usability testing event. And then later we thought, okay, we will just do this until we have found technical co-founder. And we were looking for one, but we couldn't find one. And then we just kept going with Bubble.io. And then also the fortunate thing was that Bubble, the company, developed kind of in the same pace than we did. So, always when we thought, okay, now we're getting to the limits of what it can do, it released this new feature and then another one and another one. And so we're still working with it. It works really well. I also have to say that in the beginning, it was easy, but then later, actually, the learning curve became quite steep because, it's easy to just build something that kind of works and looks like an application and works and you can use it. But it's another thing, and I'm sure you know that, to make it in a way that it's secure, that you have proper authentication, that you have a payment system, you have emailing, all these kind of things that are a bit more technical. And this was really a steep learning curve for me. So I spent, weeks and months just to kind of teach myself how to do this. So I just want to add this so it doesn't sound like it was super easy. But also I really love working like that. I like building stuff and I like teaching myself stuff. And so it's a good way for me to work.
That is very impressive because that is also somehow the future that is everywhere promised, right? That you don't need to have a full team anymore of people. You just tell the computer what you want and then you can get it. And what we see all over is the prototype phase you also described, but bringing that one also to production and make it work with all the edge cases and all this stuff is pretty cool. I had the honor to test it already and clicked around and used it a little bit, and it is working super great.
Okay, good. Good to hear.
And also, thank you for sharing this, because this shows. First, this shows the reality of the startup world and being a founder, that sometimes things don't work out the way you plan. The story that you mentioned, that your co-founder dropped out whilst being in the acceleration program, and that you continued and you did it yourself. So thanks for sharing that. I think that's really important. And I took a lesson from it, I can say. Yeah, and what is your biggest challenge at the moment? So I think beside what you've mentioned about having some free time and all the teaching and the learning curve, what are you tackling at the moment?
So I think my biggest challenges are not really so much in the product development itself. It's more like, so a big topic I've never really been able to solve is like where to focus, right? So because there are so many things to do, and it's really important to set up a system for yourself, the kind of heuristics that tell you, okay, it makes sense to invest a day more in that and not in that. And so we kind of have tried to solve this with this like theory of constraints, where you basically look, okay, it's always about the result. The result is happy customers. How do you get a step closer to that? And what's like the biggest constraint? So is it like not enough people signing up, or people signing up are not activating or not coming back, or, you know, all these like things, right? And so basically you just think about how can you improve that? And then, okay, is this more like a user experience topic? Is this more like a technical topic? Is it more marketing? And then we focus on that. But it's still a really big challenge, because always when I do this, I kind of do that. And then also, like, often things in the outside happen. So we have a new customer. He's really great. We want to keep him. But then he says, oh, but I would like to have like this and this feature. And then it's like, oh, wow, yeah, cool. No problem. We're building it. And 2 days later, we think, oh, wait a second. We just decided last week we would not do this anymore. Right. And so, yeah, I think this is really a challenge, and we're learning to be better at that. So I think we're much better than maybe 6 months ago or 12 months ago. But yeah, also not really solve this for ourselves.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. I also can, because this startup world, right, where you want to follow your product idea and you want to be super strict on what to deliver. On the other hand, you want to convince the clients, right? And you want to be delivering a product they also want, and to decide, okay, what is customer feedback and what is just one wish from one person that maybe is not belonging to the overall vision. That is very tough, but I think the answers, you always know the answers only in retrospective, right? After looking back, then everything becomes super obvious.
Absolutely. Yes. And then sometimes we sit together and we try to draw conclusions about that and kind of write it down as some sort of guidance for the future. But then something new happens and everything is different. And so, I don't know.
What would you say? How is AI shaping your role at the moment? So, I mean, it seems to be difficult to define your role exactly, but maybe also if you compare that one with your previous work in your previous jobs as a UI UX designer, how does it change for you?
So we are using AI a lot, obviously, because I mean, there's so much to do, and wherever you can use AI to accelerate it, you do it. So basically, in everything we do, my co-founder and I, we were thinking, okay, can we do this faster or better with AI? So we use it every day. I think actually if I would be in my previous job, I would probably not use it that much. So just because, when you're in a job, you basically continue working probably as you were and kind of slowly changing the way you work. And right now, like we're grasping at everything that makes us faster and better that we can. Do you want me to give some examples, or I don't know?
Yeah, that fits already perfectly to the next question. And this is also the beauty of small startup teams, right? If you are 2-person, you just say, hey, we are using that tool now. I tried this one and everybody in the company knows about it. That is obviously a big difference to SAP maybe. But what would you say is an overrated versus an underrated way AI is used in your day-to-day work?
Yeah. So I think it's overrated when it comes to output. So, when you say, write me a blog article about like this topic, the result is just really, really bad, right? And we all don't want to read this stuff anymore. I don't know exactly how other teams work, but I keep reading a lot about automation. And I think, so for me, I think AI is not really so much about automation per se, because you could do automation before, right? And you can do it, like, there are so many ways you can automate. I mean, if you have a good process, then you can automate it. I think the problem is rather that often you don't have a good process, right? So I think, so the way I use AI a lot is more as a co-intelligence. So kind of working with it together. And I use it a lot and I think it's actually underrated that way. I use it a lot for kind of a coach and a teacher, and kind of so I read an article where someone described it as a scaffolding system, like basically it helps you do something until you can do it yourself. And I use it a lot for that. So I have like series of custom GPTs. They're all brief, like into specific fields. And so I have my no code buddy, for example, and I ask him, hey, I have to restructure this database and I think I'm doing like this and this, but what's your opinion? And then he goes through it and kind of give me options. But while I'm doing this, I'm getting better in doing this. So, and this way I can do things now that I couldn't do a few months ago. And I think this is really it's really a game changer. So basically you can get really good in something, like in anything, actually, right? It's like having a personal teacher sitting right next to you and telling you, hey, now you do this and now you do that. And this is good. No, this could be better. Yeah, I think this is pretty great.
I just read an article that I forgot the number, but 80%, 90% of people don't check or justify what the AI is telling them.
Mm-hmm.
You maybe heard that too. It was, I think, pretty big, maybe especially in Germany, because we are happy to be very angry about that development and new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering myself, how should I do that? Because I let Gemini write an article about something I want to learn, right? And I get 20 pages and I read them slowly through. How should I check what it generates, right? I would not go and Google everything and do a cross-reference of everything because it sounds already so perfect. So how do you handle that? Do you feel that pressure to check what the AI is telling or trying to teach you, or how do you look at that topic?
Mm-hmm. So when I use it more for like technical stuff, I just see if it works or not, right? So it tells me to do something in a certain way, and then I try it, and then if it's wrong or it's a bad idea, then I'll see immediately. So, but what you're saying is right. So, for example, where it can be really tricky is synthetic user research. So we tried that. We're basically like creating these like customer personas, and then we were asking them about their jobs and challenges and their pain points and everything. And so this can be really tricky because, this is not about facts, obviously, but still what ChatGPT gives me back is often like kind of like an image of how a certain role is supposed to act, and not like this role is actually acting. So this is, for example, something that we are not doing anymore, like a lot, because we felt it kind of leads us on a wrong path. Because also it sounds so convincing, right? I think this is the danger. It sounds so plausible. But I think what you were referring to is more like when it gives you facts, right? And then they are not right. Yeah. So I think I don't have the situation a lot, but maybe an approach could be to ask, hey, how do you know this? Give me some sources. Or my co-founder does this a lot, that he works with ChatGPT and with the O3 model and the older model. And then he like pitches them against each other, kind of lets them discuss. This is also quite interesting.
That's an interesting way of using it, definitely. I haven't tried that, but that sounds kind of fun to observe, I would say. To move the topic to a little bit learning and away from AI, what's one thing that you wish you had learned earlier in your career?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So I think what I have learned just over the last couple of years is like trying to do things around my own strengths in a way. So I think in my first couple of jobs, I was trying to be a good employee, and just, when I was given tasks, I was just trying to do them as good as possible, which is obviously a good thing. But I think now, as I'm getting older, I realize that I feel like everyone has like these kind of strengths, so things that come much easier than to other people. And it's often a good idea to think, okay, I have this goal, like I have this task with this goal, and how can I actually do this using my strength? Also, when it means maybe to do this a little bit differently, right? So this sounds a bit abstract, but I think this is something, when you've learned that, then you can do a lot in your life, right? You can approach every new challenge like with this kind of mindset. And then after a while, you get this understanding that you can do a lot of things that you maybe thought you could not do. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, and I think it is a very valuable lesson that is nowadays even more important, because the AI will take a lot of jobs and tasks away, right? So it is even more important to find out what you really want to do and where your strengths are, and also to come up with your perspective, especially in product management. I would say it is so crucial to say, hey, could be that you come here with your 25 years of experiences, and back in the days you did it like that, but today it is completely different. I checked already 5 AI agents and they gave me so much condensed knowledge, and I started to challenge them in between each other, and now I have this shortcut to more or less everything, and wrap that around your own passion is important.
Yeah.
This is how I understood it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'm just taking notes of this. Good point. I will do that. Yeah, I fully agree, and I think it is something that we sometimes, I feel, are told differently in a work environment as well. And also the way that we sometimes are, I think this is, I don't want to get too philosophical right now. The philosophical section is the next one. But it is something that I think it is installed in us also since childhood. And that's why you see it very different in the newer generation, because I think some generational healing has happened. So at least in my childhood, I was constantly compared with every other student that was good at every other thing. So I was requested to be the best at everything all at once, just by myself. And this is something that was expected also in a work environment, instead of just focusing on what we are good at. And and using the power. And similar to that is something I think behind the Nyord as well, to bring co-creation together and utilize the different perspectives of people into a shared project. So I think that's a very interesting approach. And yeah, I agree. I would have said probably to my younger self the same thing. But I promised a more philosophical section. It's not that philosophical. It's we can make it a little bit more philosophical, but it's our yay nay game. At the end of each episode, we play a little game, and it's a rapid fire, not that rapid, just some product dilemmas, some controversial takes that I will share, and you can tell us if you agree with that or don't agree with that. If you agree, say yay, and if you don't agree, say nay. And I will read out the statements, but are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right,
Shoot.
great. An MVP is launched, but only a few customers are informed of its availability.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, if it's like the MVP, like the new product that you bring out, I would say, so to the statement, I would say nay, because you try to get it among people as much as possible. If it's more like you have a new set of features, or like you try to do something new with the product, I would say yay, because the way we're doing it actually is that we ask a couple of existing customers that we know for a longer time if they would be open to test it for us. And then we roll it out slowly. Yeah, so yay, nay.
It's a maybe.
What do you think, actually?
Yeah, I also would say a maybe. But in general, I think as oversharing is never a problem. I don't believe that you need to hold something close and dear to your heart and share it with only a small sample. And you can share it publicly that, hey, this is an MVP. We want you to test it. We want all of you to test it. So I'm more with going with a mass number of users rather than just a small sample, even if it's just for a test. I don't necessarily believe in reputation of features being broken and the user never using it again anymore because they just had one bad experience. I think experiences can be healed.
Yeah, I agree.
Easier said than done if you have to take the decision, but in general I agree too. But I also have to admit I did not do it for quite often, right? And being then shy or insecure and saying, let's give it to a few only, let's see. Then nobody's using it, and then it was maybe not the right one. Yeah. But maybe you did not show that to enough people.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, the next one. And this is going a little bit into your background as well. So designers should report directly to engineering leads rather than product management function.
Nay. So I think, but this is my perspective. I think that user experience is extremely important. And so, I mean, of course, it kind of depends on the whole setup. But in my previous jobs, I often had the experience that it came a little bit like last and was kind of, after the engineering. So something really cool was built and it was technological, really advanced and really cool. And then we designers were coming in, and then we said, no, you have to do this differently. Nobody understands this. And then the engineers were really pissed. And so, yeah. So I think it should be like, I mean, but user experience is like this thing where I think, of course, as a user experience person, I always think it's more important than everyone else. But also I think it should be something that everyone is a little bit. So if you have engineers that like kind of also think a bit like a user experience designer, without being a designer really to say, but kind of having this mindset of the users in the center of what we're doing, maybe this is not even necessary, right? So kind of depends on this and like kind of the team mode probably.
Yeah. I understand. And last but not least, all right, let's go to the last one. Product managers should be required to do customer support shifts on a monthly basis to maintain product context.
I've never thought about this, but spontaneously, I would say this is a great idea because I think it's quite valuable for everyone on the team to really talk to customers. So it's easy to say for me, of course, everyone on my team talks to customers all the time. And I know in a larger team, it's more difficult because not everyone maybe can do that. But it's probably a very good experience for everyone to do this once in a while, just to kind of get a sense of what kind of people these are and how they are feeling. And also even, sometimes it's like the customer really loves the product. And then it's good when people also hear this and can be like proud and yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, I also agree to that. It's such a good idea to bring everybody in the team close to the customer, at least from time to time, and also share user feedback in a broader round to also generate a shared understanding of that user. And that makes it so much easier for every engineer, for example, to also think a little bit about the UX of the product.
One of the gifts out of interacting within the customer support team gives is you understand you're dealing with humans on the other side of the code and the UI. And that sometimes is missed when you're just in your product and tech bubble and you're just designing something, you're coding something, you're writing a Jira ticket, you're doing your own rituals and you may talk to customers only when it's time to validate your assumptions, only when time comes for doing a user research. But being on the front lines, which in my perspective is a customer support team, gives you a complete different feeling about your users, about their struggles. And on top of that, it gives you a very clear idea of the struggles of your customer support team, because they are usually the most forgotten team and they do an amazing job. They do something really, really hard, tirelessly in my perspective. And sometimes the tools that they're using are just an afterthought. So the tools that they need to use for responding to the users are not equipped enough to do their work efficiently and effectively. So I think it gives in my opinion, every single product manager, when they start on their first week, they need to go through a training with the customer support team for a week, because it also gives them a very quick experience about the product and deep knowledge about the product. So they quickly need to understand and learn all the response guidelines. So when a user reaches out and says, hey, this thing didn't work on my app or website, the customer support team already has a response guideline how to answer that. So the product manager quickly can learn all the tips and tricks of the product. So in my perspective, it definitely needs to be part of onboarding process and it needs to be redone every quarter, but that's just my thought.
Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah.
So definitely a good thing. As soon as Nyord gets this huge customer support team that is maybe not replaced by AI. So many follow-up questions on that one, but we want to come to an end now. And Friederike, maybe one last question. If you could give every product tech person one reminder for next week, what would it be?
I had someone gave me this advice recently, which was really good, and I'll just use it now. And he said, put a Post-it on your desk and write on it, ask ChatGPT. So, basically, this is a good practice. Like before you do something, I kind of quickly ask, so, hey, what do you think about this? Could I do this another way? Is there another option? Could I do this faster? Just to kind of, keep the mind open for new possibilities and kind of stay flexible. I thought this was a good advice.
That reminds me on this website. Let me Google that for you. Maybe we should build something similar that is saying, now let me ChatGPT that for you.
That's a great idea. When you said to put a post-it in front of you, I have a post-it on my laptop. This is a lemon. And in meetings, I just show this when the time comes that we need to move on. And because unfortunately, it's not yet an emoji in any of the messaging tools, in any of the video messaging tools. But yeah, I agree. I will add that also on my laptop to remember. We came to the end of the episode by now. And thank you so much, Friederike, for joining us today. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Where can people find you? If they have any questions, if they want to get in touch.
Yeah, probably on LinkedIn is the best way. Just write me a message there if someone is interested in, like, I don't know, exchanging thoughts or talking. Yeah, I think that's it.
Perfect.
And if you are interested, or if you are working in a team and you are interested in co-creation, all the next ideas, and maybe how to use ChatGPT more, or what great AI tools to bring, or how to accelerate the business, then go and try out Nyord. I think it is a very nice and guided way on how to bring all the different thoughts together and make it into one or multiple actionable steps. So thank you. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe and recommend the podcast. And we see us in one of the next episodes.
Thank you. Bye.